Prisoner B-3087, Chapter 4. I had always thought it would be fun to have a brother or a sister. That is, until I spent a few months living in my little apartment with 5 other kids. The bickering, the fighting, the whining. You'd think that soldiers in the streets and synagogues burning and days with nothing more to eat than moldy potatoes would be more important than who got to play with the doll or who got to sleep by the window. But you'd be wrong. The nights were the worst. I pulled my pillow and blanket out into the hall whenever the Rosenblum girls were arguing, which seemed like all the time now. I had to sleep on the floor, but I didn't mind so much. I'd be sleeping on the floor here or there, and at least for now I had the whole hall to myself. If we had to take in another family, I thought bitterly, I'd probably have to share the hall too. I was sound asleep one night when a creak in the hall woke me up. In the darkness, I saw a shape of a person. "Who's there?" I asked, feeling my heart in my throat. "Shh, Yannick, it's me," my father whispered. "I'm sorry I woke you. Go back to sleep." Father had his coat on. He was going outside. "Where are you going?" I asked him. "I want to go with you." "No, it's dangerous to go out after curfew." "Then why are you going?" I was scared. I scrambled out from under my blanket. "Are you going to leave the ghetto?" Anyone trying to escape the ghetto was shot on sight. No, go back to sleep, Yannick." "No!" I wanted to help. My father had begun to look so tired lately. The work gangs and lack of food made him look like he'd aged 10 years in 2. "I can help be your eyes, to look for guards. I want to come with you." "Shh, Yannick, you'll wake everyone else," my father sighed. "All right, but not another word. We must be silent, you understand?" I nodded and hurried to put on my coat. When I was ready, we slipped out the door and down the stairs. I'd never been out this late before. The stairwell was dark and full of shadows. My heart still leaped at every little sound, even with my father there. My father led me down the stairs like we were going to the building's furnace in the basement, but instead we went out through the back door into the alley behind our building. Snow fell in big, thick flakes, muffling everything. It was so quiet that you could hear the flakes hitting the snow that was already on the ground. Tick, 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 tick. I followed my father through the silent alley. Our footprints left tracks in untrodden snow. I looked behind me, suddenly worried that we were leaving a trail that would be easy to follow. But the falling snow was already covering our tracks. I prayed for more of it, even though it would mean new work details for my father and other Jewish men to clear it in the morning. We had to cross at Zoviskinska Street, which meant we would be out in the open. Down the block, a German soldier in a great coat, scarf, and hat cupped his hands to his face to light a cigarette. My father put a hand to my chest, and we flattened ourselves against the wall in the shadow of an apartment building. I watched the German soldier breathe out a long cloud of smoke. The red ember from his cigarette glowed in the darkness. Where was he from? What was his name? Did he have a family? Children like me? Did he hate Jews the way Hitler did? Had he ever killed a man? The Nazi rubbed his hands together and stomped his feet to clear the snow and cold from them and walked around the corner out of sight. "Now," my father whispered, and we hurried across the street, our feet crunching so loudly in the quiet night air I thought everyone on the block must hear us. I'd crossed that street 100 times, 1,000 times, but had never felt so wide, the other side so far away. When we reached the alley across the street, we stopped, leaning against a wall again while we caught our breaths and listened to see if anyone had heard us. The only sound was the falling of snow. Tick, 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 tick. My father led me a short way on, and I began to realize where we were going. Uncle Abraham's bakery. The Nazis had let him keep it to bake bread for the soldiers. As we pushed on the door to go inside, something caught. A towel was stuffed into the crack along the floor. As soon as we were inside, I understood why. Bread. The wonderful, beautiful smell of bread. The aroma alone made my stomach growl. I had learned to live with hunger, but now that my body knew that there was fresh baked bread to be had, it could barely contain itself. I shook with anticipation. My father replaced the towel under the door, and we made our way down the dark corridor to the ovens. Uncle Abraham and Aunt Phila had covered every window and door with towels, sheets, blankets, anything that would block out the light and the smell. "Oscar," Uncle Abraham said to my father when we found them. He hugged my father, and I ran to where Aunt Phila was pulling racks of bread from the oven. "And I see you brought a helper," Aunt Phila said. "Hello, Yannick." She smiled at me, but I only had eyes for the bread. Golden brown loaves that glistened and steamed in the cool air. I felt my mouth water. Phila laughed. "Take one." "After we work," my father said, and my heart burst. How could I possibly wait? He turned to my uncle. "What can we do? Are you firing both ovens?" my father asked. "Only one for bread," Uncle Abraham said. He opened the second oven to show it was empty. In this one, we're burning wet wood to help cover the smell of the bread with the smoke. We weren't able to save enough flour to bake in both ovens all the time anyway. We must make it last. Another month, another year, another 2. "Spring," my father said. "The British and the French will be here by then." Uncle Abraham shrugged. "And maybe the Russians get here first. The peace can't last." 17 days after Germany had invaded Poland from the west, the Soviet Union had invaded from the east. Poland was split right down the middle, and the Germans and Russians had promised not to fight each other. For now. In the meantime, we'll bake what we can, but if the Nazis find out... "Come, let's get to it," my father said. "Yannick and I will feed the fires." We worked into the wee hours of the morning, father and I feeding wood and coal into the ovens, Uncle Abraham making dough, Aunt Phila pulling those delectable loaves from the racks and putting them into sacks. "We must get you back before light," Uncle Abraham said at last. "Here, take 3 sacks apiece. That should be enough to sell on Kakusa Street, plus 1 sack for yourself." A whole sack of bread just for us. I almost moaned at the thought of such a feast. "Moshe is coming by tomorrow to pick up sacks to sell to the families on Augusta Street," Abraham said, "and David and Sala tomorrow night to sell to Rakawa Street." "How much per loaf?" father asked. Abraham shrugged. 5 zloty, perhaps. 5 zloty? A loaf of bread usually costs no more than half a zloty. I hate to be so mercenary, but the price of flour has gone up too. "You can still buy flour?" father asked. "There are boys who have already found holes in the walls, ways to get out. They can buy things on the other side." "For a price," Aunt Phila said. "These new Jews, they have money too. They can afford it," Abraham said. "Now go, before it's light." "Enjoy your bread, Yannick," Aunt Phila said. She kissed my forehead, and Abraham and my father hugged each other goodbye. When we left, it was still dark outside, still snowing. There would be no more patrols. The ghetto would soon be waking, and there was no time to waste. "One more then, Yannick, to home, and then we shall have fresh bread for breakfast. How does that sound?" "Delicious," I said. Father put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed it. "We just have to survive the winter, Yannick, and then everything will be better. You'll see." I still worried he was wrong, but fresh bread made me forget all my troubles. For a little while, at least.